I think we're ready to begin, everybody. So good evening, everyone. Very special welcome to you to this special event hosted by Monish's Faculty of Education. Global Perspectives on School Leadership, Trends, Challenges and Opportunities. Special welcome to our esteemed keynote speaker from China, Professor Yaqing Mao, and our excellent panellists who are seated around him. And in alphabetical order, they are Mr. Neil Barker, Dr. Maria Gindidis. Maybe should I get you to wave? Dr. Tony Meath, Ms. Kate Morris, and Mr. Ed Strain. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet today, the people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. My name's Graham Parr, for those of you who don't know me. I'm Associate Dean International in the Faculty of Education here at Monash. Now I'll introduce Professor Mao and my esteemed panellists in more detail later on. But let me just move on to the program. If our timing goes well, this is how the evening will work. Once I get off, I'll introduce Professor Mao, and he will give a short presentation of about 25 minutes, and that will be followed by a movement of the panel onto the comfortable couches at the front, and they will all respond to perhaps an aspect of Professor Mao's speech, or perhaps an aspect of leadership that they want to refer to, perhaps one of the trends or the challenges or the opportunities of leadership as they understand it. And as I said, if timing goes well, there will be plenty of time for you as an audience to ask questions of either Professor Mao or any of the panellists or both. So let me say a few words first about this evening's topic. Global Perspectives on School Leadership, Trends, Challenges and Possibilities. School leadership and globalisation are never far from the front pages of our newspapers here in Australia. In fact, they capture the imagination of newspaper readers and consumers of popular media across the world. And that's mostly a good thing. As many people have acknowledged, school leaders play a crucial role in building the future citizens of every country and in building global citizens in this globalising world. But to use an Australian idiom, leadership in schools is not all beer and skittles. So what do school leaders across the world think about their work in these globalising times? Well, it seems principals and school leaders have significantly higher job satisfaction than the general population. I think probably everybody in the room knows that here, but at least it's worth reminding everybody. It's interesting because that fact hasn't changed over recent years when so much else has changed. Another thing that hasn't changed much is that over 99% of school leaders work beyond the number of hours per week that are recommended for optimal mental health. On a less positive note, principals experience higher levels of burnout, stress, difficulty sleeping and depressive symptoms than the general public. And slightly less pleasant news is that it's trending higher. And notwithstanding the high job satisfaction, it's getting harder and harder to appoint and retain school principals in some places. At least all that's what the 2018 Principal Health and Wellbeing Survey of principals and school leaders in Australia, New Zealand and Ireland had to say. So we'll tease out some of those questions and some other perspectives during the course of the afternoon. Let me take this opportunity to acknowledge both the audience in here, but also those who are out there. You can feel them if you can't actually see them, who are live streaming into the event. It's great to have you there if you're listening in from outside. And for us here, please note that if you want to be heard by those people who are live streaming, you need to be speaking into a microphone, and we'll have some roving microphones for you later on when we get to that point. Okay, so now it's my great pleasure to introduce Professor Yaqing Mao, our keynote for this evening. Professor Mao comes to us from Beijing Normal University, where he's the director of a research centre of principal leadership. Amongst other positions he holds in China, he's the vice chairman of the National Association for the Training of Primary and Middle School Principals, and the director of the Chinese Executive Office of School Management, a collaboration between UNICEF and China's Ministry of Education. Professor Mao has received many national awards for his research into school leadership, including the Outstanding Research Award of the Chinese Academic Humanities and Social Sciences, and the Chinese Ministry of Education's National Award for Outstanding Achievements in Scientific Research. He's published 8 books and more than 100 research journal articles, and he's been a visiting scholar in the US and the UK. And now we're privileged that he's visiting us here at Monash. Professor Mao has titled his presentation, The Past, Current and Future of Principal Training in China. Please join me in welcoming Professor Mao to the lectern.
Thanks, Grandma, everybody. I'm glad to come to Monash University to represent this topic. Look at this topic, the past, current, and the future of principal training in China. I want to train traditional these parties from poor parties, background, past, current, and future. So this is my topic from 4 parties. The first party is I try tradition some background. This I think this 1978 is very important special year for China development. This year, the important meeting is held in China. So from this year, China have big change in past 40 years. So after this year, development of China societies, Chinese basic education have great process. Without principal training, the progress in China basic education cannot be achieved. So, principal training very important for development basic education. I share number about we can learn more about education in China. The first number of students. Okay, look at this: 185 million students in China. Okay, it's big. Okay, bigger. So this is a students' number. Okay, second number is teachers' number. So 15 million teachers. I get the number of population of Australia from Philip told me population of Australia is 25 million. Okay, the number of teacher is more than half of population of Australia. So Philip gave me suggest move 15 million teachers to America, maybe to Australia to improve the quality of population of people. Okay. Number of principal in China, okay, number is nearly 1 million. 1 million people, 1 million principal. Okay, from higher school to primary school. So number is created from low to high. So this is number of principal in China. So really big. Okay. So I think China have a change to development education. Okay. So this first I told you some basic information of basic education. Second part is about in past 40 years for China change, very big change in principal training. So I think in the past years, 40 years, the development of the principal in China have been highlighted in the following 8 aspects. The first is, I think, very important. The first, having a clear orientation of training idea in basic education. So three things. The first is good teacher can good group of students. Second is good principal can make a good school. Third is group of editor. Editor means expert and well-thought principle can influence the future of country. Okay, this in China basic idea about training, principal training. Third is formulating a series of national policy and regulation. In China is very special to other country. In China, social economic development is usually guided by formulation of 5-year plan. So this is special to other country. It seems to training principal training. So different period, different national policy across this 5 years. 5-year plan. So this is very special. Okay. Third is constructive the principal training institution with hierarchical management. So in China, four level, from national level to county level. Okay, 4 different level. So at the national level, government to pay attention to this national level. So we can see slide in 1989 for middle school principal to build a national training center. In 2000, build from primary school principal build a national training center. After they said that in 2011 to build a national training center for kindergarten principal. So we can look at 11 years to build a national training center. Maybe I don't know in future what time we can build a new training center. Okay. Fourth is establish the expert institution at the national level. So 2 national training institutions. In 1999, to build a national community of experts on principle and synchronous principle. Another 2000, a national community on the training of primary and secondary school. So I am vice president of 2 national programs. Okay. Fifth is build full-time and part-time training team. At the training center, have a part-time or full-time, and another come from excellent education management. So this is called part-time training team. Oh, okay. The last one, very important in China, national database training export in government. Okay. Okay. Sixth is established standardized management for principal training. Standards for tendering and evaluation of training institute. Standarding for training export database. Standarding for private training integrated and self-discipline. So assure this path established the model, removed training system, cover urban and rural area. The last one is adopted multiple form of training. Okay. This is the second the parties about the past 40 years in China. Okay. In China, I can introduce some about China's current experience and extent shortcoming. Okay, I show you next slide. The first current experience. I think this is 5 point is very important. This is experience of training, of the principal training. The first government led training design. So this is a characteristics of China in principal training. Okay. Third is a national-wide training network. Third, the guiding ideology of integrating theory with practice. Fourth is guiding principle of combined of learning and application. I think this is very important to make principle professional development. Okay. The last one is training team with the combined full-time and part-time together to training principle. Okay. I think maybe some existing shortcoming in China principle. This slide shows the 5 points. The first is a standard system of principal training based on core quality of principle have not yet been established. I think there is a lack of curriculum standard and national principal training textbook. Third, local scientific evaluation editor after training. Okay. Third is a combination of theory and practice is not close enough. Fifth is in social's new training model, not for applied model technology. The next slide, 4 point shortcoming in China. So maybe you can read this one by one. Okay, this last 4 point in shortcoming in China principle. Okay. Maybe the last one. Okay. The last one is challenge for future. I don't know everybody can understand the situation in China. Last year is a special year for China. Big change in China. Okay. Maybe last year, China is entering in new area. It means this new areas means three big change. The first big change is big social change. Focus on satisfaction of the people's yearning for the better life. So I think there's different stage for China. Before stage, look on make money maybe, and now enter how to make people have a good life. Okay, big economical change. This third big change is big economical change. The change focus from high speed growth to high quality in development. I think this is a big difference before before other stage. Second change from a largest manufacturing nation to stronger manufacturing nation to innovative nation. So this is very different. But bigger in education, big change is bigger education change. From more talents, it means just get academic knowledge to good students, good ones. It means all over the whole people. So this big change, very different. So from the last year, so 2018, so it is special year for China. So many new big change in China. Okay. So in this big change area for principal training, I think very is a big change at goal of the teachings development. So this goal of by 2035. To 2035, look at read the sentence. Meanings of key teachers. Hundreds of thousands of standing teachers and tens of thousands educator type teachers will be trained. So this is a big change for training teacher development. So how to deal with this change? We must improve the principal training in next 5 points. So the first is realizing the transition from principal training to principal study. How to stimulate the intellectual drive of principal participation in training, and the same allows us to challenge to China principal training in future. So this is a big challenge for China. So I introduce Chinese principal training. Come to here. I'm glad I look all right. Many Chinese students come here. So maybe I don't speak to enough. Maybe Chinese students can help me. Okay. So after this presentation, maybe ask me question. But this is it's short time. I can simply introduce something about principal training in China. So that's all. Thanks for everybody. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Mao, for those interesting insights into some of the trends and the possibilities and the challenges in preparing the next generation of school principals in China. There are some things which are hugely, hugely different, and there are other things which are eerily similar. And I think it will be interesting in the course of the next hour or so for us to be able to explore some of them. Now, there will be opportunities to ask questions of Professor Mao, and we'll have some translators so that we'll be able to get some good dialogue going there at that time. But I'd now like to call upon our esteemed panellists to respond to some of what Professor Mao was saying. So can I just ask you to make your way to the front chair? I'm reminded of Norman Gunston. Didn't he used to say, "Come and sit down on my couch"? And people would sort of embarrassed walk towards the couch and say, "What's he going to do to me next?" So what I would like to do is to introduce the members of the panel as a group, rather than pop up and down and introduce them one at a time. So, the invitation is to either respond to something specific that Professor Mao has said, or perhaps to talk about that notion of trends, challenges and possibilities in terms of leadership and in Australia or internationally. We will have some mics that we can just move along as each of you speaks. But let me just introduce in a little bit more detail than I did last time. So first of all, Mr. Neil Barker, sitting at the end there, who's Director of the Bastow Institute of Educational Leadership in Australia. We're very grateful to have you there. Thank you very much. And this is all in alphabetical order, by the way. That's how we manage the impossible kind of hierarchies there, so in alphabetical order. Secondly is Dr. Maria Gindidis. Maria is Senior Lecturer in the Faculty of Education here at Monash. And thirdly is Dr. Tony Meath, Principal of Melbourne Girls Grammar School. And next is Ms. Kate Morris, who's Principal of Northcote High School. Mr. Daniel Pinchas, General Manager of Australian Institute of Teaching and School Leadership, that we know colloquially as ATL. Thanks very much, Daniel. And Mr. Ed Strain, the Deputy Principal of Clayton North Primary School, which is just a hop, skip and a jump down the road there. Okay. So that's our panel. So I'll invite you, perhaps starting, if we can do that in that order, maybe Neil and then Maria, Tony, Kate, Daniel and Ed. If somebody feels like they really want to jump in out of that order, we're flexible, we can deal with that, okay? So, Neil, thanks very much.
Are you happy with me sitting? Yeah. Cool, yeah. Great, all right. Very comfortable. Thank you very much for having me here. Professor Mao, a really interesting presentation. We met about 2 years ago when Professor Mao visited the Bastow Institute with a delegation, so we have met in the past, so it's lovely to see you again. I think there were three things, so I'll try to be brief, that resonated for me. The first is this notion of big change. One of the pleasures I've had in the last probably 12 months is to listen to Valerie Hannon, who's from the UK, the innovation unit there, and she just published a book called Thrive. And it's a really interesting piece because it does go to this notion of change, and we often talk about the 21st century skills that we want to develop in our students. Her argument is that we should be broadening that concept because we often go to the economic skills that we want students to have. Her, and I'm probably not doing her justice here, but her view is that we should be broadening that to how do we create students who can thrive in a future world that is very globalised, very connected, but also has a number of intrinsic complex problems, particularly around environment and climate change and other matters. So how do we deal with that? The second is I think this notion of a group of educators can influence a country. At the Bastow Institute, and it's very nice that we've put Australia, but I think the other states and territories would be pretty unhappy with that title because Bastow is for Victorian government school leaders only. The other thing that I would go to is this notion that when we worked together, we can achieve so much more. So part of Bastow's work has been to help schools work in a more collaborative way across groups of schools, known as the Communities of Practice approach. If you Google Bastow Communities of Practice approach, you'll see a whole lot of information about that there. Really important skills for future leaders to have, that capacity to collaborate with others, particularly principals. And the third thing I go to is the final list. I didn't get all of the things down, Professor Mao, but the challenges for the future are exactly the challenges that, for principals of the future, are exactly the same challenges that we have at the Bastow Institute. And in particular, I'd pick one out, and that's knowing our impact. How do we know that the professional learning that our participants are participating in is the best it can be? And how much impact is it actually having? And the more we know about it, the more we can change what we do and the more we can target the sorts of things that we do. Sorry, I've probably gone a bit long, and I'm going to pass over Graham.
Yeah, over to Maria. Thank you.
Okay, so I want to thank Professor Mao. What I heard was very exciting and very humble, because I've been a school reviewer and I'm involved in the Unlocking Potential training of the Graduate Certificate of Aspirant Principals for the department and for Neil's Bastow Institute, and also had a group of amazing Shanghai principals about a year and a half ago who came, like many principals, from China, and they come to visit our schools. They went to McKinnon Secondary. I spent a whole week with them and was able to get some research, and am still involved with them. But what excited me was this whole idea of the evidence that has accumulated around principals' leadership and the improvement of teaching and learning. So we know that, Leithwood and others have, in the last especially 5 years, made clear links between school leadership and the quality of student education. But there was a landmark study which was very interesting in 2011, and I wanted Professor Mao maybe to talk a little bit about that. Since Shanghai's PISA results in 2011, there has been widely regarded views that Chinese principals have not only changed in the last 10 years, but that we've also had incredible results, to the point where the World Bank in 2016 issued a report called "How Does Shanghai Do It?" And one of the insights from Shanghai's success was the importance of using criteria to recruit and appraise school principals. If the last 10 years of our Chinese students here at Monash is anything to go by, I have seen incredible changes in the thinking, the openness, and the value of creativity and teacher and child-centric approaches in our pre-service teachers. But interesting, what really got me from this report was that there was a priority on instructional leadership, where principals in Shanghai are required to observe between 30 and 50 classes per term and provide teachers with in-depth feedback. So there is a real strength at the moment, from what I understood from Professor Mao and the reading that I've done, but also going back to Graham's point, that when I read, and I only wish I was bilingual and Chinese, because much of the research has still not really been translated for the West around school leadership. But if our principals here are overstressed and worked, the Shanghai World Bank report is making me feel that it's going to be very hard to find principals in China who want to be part of this new training system. So my question would be, however exciting this is, how does Shanghai do it? And in terms of instructional leadership and the cultural changes, how will China address what in the West is already an issue, with a lot of great principals not wanting to continue the work, and the research telling us that they're working 80 to 100 hours a week?
Okay, thank you very much, Maria. We'll keep that question on notice, and Professor Mao will be able to respond to that. Okay, thanks. Oh, Tony or Kate, doesn't really matter.
Kate Morris. I am past principal of Northcote High School, so just so you're all aware of that. And I now work for the Victorian School Building Authority as a principal consultant in that organisation. So I'm now looking from the inside out. I used to look from the outside in. So the view, I've got a couple of perspectives and I'm interested in responding to. In what way have you seen globalisation enabling an exciting development in schools and for school leadership? And I think I can touch on a couple of points in relation to that issue. I love the word enabling and I also like the one exciting. And I think in my role as a school leader and working with teachers and the broader community, internationalising provides an opportunity to take action. And it certainly is an innovation piece that needs to live beyond programs. It's actually around the values and the way you do your work, the way you behave, and it emanates through curriculum, through experiences, and through relationships for children, for teachers, and for families. So if you can broadly embrace that big idea as a school and as a school leader, you can be incredibly influential around providing opportunities for staff to work collaboratively in a global, with a global lens. And that certainly, in my experience, has been profound and has also been what I call hard fun. But it really pushes people's thinking and gives them opportunities to work as leaders, both in the classroom, but also in a broader, with a broader international experience. And through that, you can then develop school leaders, because you only become a leader through actually the experiences that you have. So I've found that to be pretty powerful. The other thing I just want to mention is the broader governance and risk lens around working in spaces that can be seen as beyond the core, and allowing the systems, allowing school leaders to find an innovation space is absolutely critical, because innovation is greater than, well, it's not binary, success and failure. It's actually continuing to find opportunities to make experiences and programs and ways of being work. So you need to have a long-term lens around how you support your school community and curriculum innovations, and more broadly how you develop teachers. And it's not an ad break. It's sort of an enduring series of programs. And finally, I just want to mention the toolbox of skills that school leaders develop through the enabling and excitingness of developing programs and relationships in a global space. And that doesn't mean you have to go somewhere. You can do it by through your liberal arts program, through your STEM programs, through sport and music and a whole range of ways. And I think that's stating the obvious, but you can do it from home. As long as you're looking up and out, you can certainly develop your school leaders and your school community.
Thank you very much, Kate. That's tremendous. Maybe Daniel, do you want to just... Yeah.
Sure. Thanks. So, Danny Pinchas from AITSL will speak on from the national perspective. I'm also a former principal from a school up in the remote area of the Kimberley in Western Australia. Thank you, Professor Mao, for your presentation. I think what struck me was a lot of the similarities in the challenges that we face here in Australia. around leadership development and how we are preparing our leaders for the future. The TALIS data in Australia would suggest that the average principal has 27 years of teaching experience behind them. As compared with the OECD average of 21 years, or Singapore at the other end of the spectrum at 14 years. And I think there's a real challenge with our current workforce and some of the issues around principal wellbeing that you raised, Graham, around how are we making the role not only attractive to teachers and to assistant principals, but also sustainable. And I think that's a challenge that we all face. And whilst picking up on a couple of the other panellists' point around the evidence and making sure that is surfaced and emerging so we know what works best in leadership, we also have to think about the models of developing leaders from an earlier point in their careers. So I think in pockets we are doing that well, and there's been an increased investment in leadership development. However, it is patchy in certain areas, and you brought up the issue around rural remote schools. I know from my experience, I was only there as in my 20s as a principal because there was a lack of people knocking on the door to be in that role, and grossly underprepared for the role. So what are we doing at an early stage from right back in initial teacher education to those first years in teaching to actually open up some doors around leadership? It doesn't have to necessarily end in a principal position, but making sure that we've got a bank of leadership capability that we can draw on to make sure that we've got leaders who are capable and working not only within their schools but systemically as well. So big challenges across the country, and with the likes of the Bastos of making sure that we've got that focus and we're not just relying on individual principals to carry the load to prepare the next the leaders of tomorrow. That we are thinking more systemically.
Thanks very much, Danny. Tony?
Thank you, and thank you so much, Professor Mao, for your presentation. And again, with Dan, I agree. We have so many similarities between our countries, but also differences. To be a principal is a privileged position, and with my practical hat on as a principal within a school, it's very, very important that we care for our teachers in their early graduate years. I am troubled by the bleed of graduates who go in really inspired to be in the classroom, and too often they're promoted too early and they get burnt out, and they leave not only the classroom but education as a profession. And so I think it's incumbent upon us as leaders in education, especially as principals within schools, to carefully enable our staff and to develop their capacity to be leaders in a very strategic way, so that we put opportunities in front of them. It's carefully scaffolded, just like we would with our students, so that they are inspired to be leaders within schools, because I think we're losing good people early. So we want to attract the best to education. It's the most wonderful profession to be in. We want to wed them to the profession, develop them, so that when their time is ready, and that can be younger as well, but they have to have the resilience, the confidence, the experience, both the theory and the practice, to be successful as a principal. So I think it's all of our responsibility to do that. And just, it's such a again, in that practical sense of a principle, it's a global world we're living in, and we're actually instructing our students in a global sense. The recent happenings in Christchurch, now, that would have played out in conversations all around the globe, from all different levels. We would have unpacked that. So it's not only, that global competition once they graduate from university in employment, but the narrative they're having in their classroom as they're growing up is global. So the more we work together, I think, to ensure that, our students are developing the dispositions to leave school with that confidence to be empowered and have agency for an unknown future, but also we protect our teachers and develop them carefully. Hence the reason why I love the Bastow, and I love that notion of scaffolded learning for our teachers to become principals. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tony. And Ed.
Excellent. It's a very hard act to follow after Professor Mal. Thank you so much for your insights. I would just like to share, I guess, quickly the practicalities of some of that in relation to Australia, and more specifically just over the road at Clayton North Primary School. So we live and breathe the benefits of globalisation. So as the world has become smaller, our schools become a hub for diversity and inclusion. We're a school with 320 students. 89% of those students have a language background other than English. Currently, as of this afternoon, we're a highly transient school, but we have 34 different countries represented with over 36 different languages spoken. We're a highly successful beneficiary of globalisation and its effects on education. Our school has formal sister school relationships with schools in Cambodia, Indonesia and Japan. Our biggest celebratory event is Harmony Day. It encompasses everything that our school represents. It validates the assertion that whilst the world becomes smaller, our school continues to grow. It's incumbent on our school to look inwardly on educational trends and high quality pedagogy, but also equally importantly, there's an onus on our school to look outwardly, to recognise and understand the powerful effects of globalisation and those implications on education. Many of our parent community study here at Monash University. They bring with them experiences and understanding shaped by their lives led overseas. Our school becomes richer for their involvement. Our school is shaped by their involvement. The prevalence of data from resources such as PISA and Pearls and TIMS, we're looking at education from a global context. Australia no longer is seen in isolation, despite its geographical location, but rather we form an understanding of progress and trends from around the world. We're reliant on our place within a decentralised education system, a system that allows us to lean on and learn from understandings and partnerships with various countries in Asia and around the world. In Australia, we're currently grappling with the dwindling data sets in comparison to other OECD countries. Historically, we've looked to countries like Finland who have set the bar for education, but more recently, we've seen countries such as Singapore, China and Japan outperform Finland. Where does this lead us? Why is this important? And what implications does it have for my school and for other schools? As its Wiseman and Baker put forward the idea that in fact the globalisation of education reform is a potent force acting on how national school systems develop and operate. It's the idea that drives our school today and it has the potential for creating opportunities in the future. I'll finish quickly with a very blatant plug. If you're in the area, we are literally over the road. Please come and visit our school. If you want an opportunity to live and breathe globalisation in a real world context of a government primary school, I'd be very happy to show you around. Thank you again, Professor Mel.
Thank you. And now it just kind of seems appropriate if we might just give a round of applause for all of the insights and thoughts from the panel. And if I can just bring Professor Mao in at this stage, maybe if we go back to Maria's question. Maria was speaking about Shanghai and the stories about Shanghai, in particular in relation to what principalship and what school leaders are like in Shanghai, and some of the concerns that Maria expressed about the future that we're experiencing in Australia in retaining and nurturing and caring for our principals. Is that an issue in Shanghai?
Okay, I answer a question in Chinese. Okay, maybe.
And
Dr. Philip translation. Okay, sure. Sorry. Okay.
But I come from Hong Kong. My mother tongue is Cantonese, not Mandarin. But don't worry, I got more than 50 students, master education students from China to back me up. If I got any problem, I will ask them to help me.
OK。刚才问到上海的披萨考试，的的确确前2年就是那个上海作为单独一个 组团单位参加披萨考试的时候，他的确在全世界排名是第一的。
In the last two PISA program for international student assessment (OECD), in fact, yes, Shanghai is the only one represent China to go in this competition. They got very well results.
对，那个成绩的取得，我觉得如果跟我们校长培训有关系的话，的确，因为我觉得上海是比较一个典型的地方。
Shanghai is very particular places. It's pioneer in education. All education reform will start from Shanghai. So I can understand how Shanghai getting better. Principal is the first pioneer to have education reform in Shanghai.
上海呢，在中国呢，应该在基础教育应该是在全国领先的一个地方啊。
Basic education in Shanghai is the top.
OK，我们举个简单的例子啊，因为那个我们有个刚才我也提到了，我们有个国家中心呢，是对中学校长培训的，就放在上海的。
We have national principal training center. Is put in East China Normal University in Shanghai.
所以上海在这个整个教育的这种探索和创新呢，是在全国是比较领先的一个地方。
Shanghai, that's why Shanghai is the top region. The government put quite a lot of resources to make this education region as a pioneer in education in China.
因为刚才在我的这个呈现里面呢，因为时间关系呢，我们没有展开讲在中国的校长培训它的成绩，因为这个校长培训的模式呢，实际上对校长的专业成长起了非常重要的作用。上海呢，在这方面呢，做了非常好的一种探索。
Because of the time frame, I only have 20 to 25 minutes for my presentation, and my PowerPoint actually have a lot of PowerPoint slides. One of these talking about Shanghai, and actually Shanghai is perform very well in China.
就是我们就简单讲，就是我们校长的培训的层级，我们实际上分为3个层级。
Principal training, we have a 3 different type, different level for principal training.
就4个层级，我们刚才讲。
4，OK。
在上海我们可以讲，就是从校长从他那个校长领先校长那个角度，我们分了3个层级，一个叫骨干校长。
Okay, one kind of principal is the backbone principal.
第二个层级呢叫优秀校长的培养层级。
Another is called excellent principal.
第3个呢就是教育家型校长，就是我们刚才讲的 AT。
Another one we just mentioned is an educator type of principal.
所以它那个是不同专业发展到有不同的培训体系来支撑它的专业发展。
Each type of the principal, they have a training contents for different type of principal.
那个我们这个骨干校长培训就1个月的时间。
For the backbone principal, it's just 1 month training.
到培训机构去集中学习。
Is they go to the national training center, focus for 1 month training inside the center.
但是它培训方式是多样化的，有集中学习，有跟岗学习，还有我们说经验交流，还有这种研讨式的方式。
Okay. So the training is very diversified. Have a different type. One is they have a centralized classes. Another is they can follow a principal, go to school. Another thing is just like a seminar, public seminar like this.
So we might just finish up the answer.
Okay.
You finish?
Oh yeah, finish.
Okay. 这是第1个层级，第2个层级是2年的，就是优秀校长培养。
Another is 2-year training, full-time training, 2 year.
OK， 他要做那个办学思想的整体提炼和要做研究的课题的研究课题。
That's very hard.
Yeah.
Okay, no. They have knowledge input for 2 years, so they have new innovative idea. This type of the principle, they need to be when they go to school, they have an innovative idea put in the school.
这是第2个层级，第3个层级是3年的校长，他不仅要对进行办学思想提炼，要写研究论文，同时他还引领区域里面的其他学校的一种发展。
Okay, the third type, the last type is 3 year. 3-year training. 3-year training.
Okay.
So they have do a thesis writing. They need to be a leader in the district. The principal need to be the leader in the whole a lot of school in the same district.
OK， 所以他这个校长培训是很成体系的，是基于他专业发展，有不同的培训模式来支撑他的专业发展。
So each type of the principal training is very structured training.
当然这是我们说好的方面啊，因为上海那个 PISA 考上，我觉得还是真的，我觉得还是辛苦了学生，因为大家看看那个统计数据了，上海的学生比东亚的其他学生还是用了更多的时间在学习上。
Okay, when we go back to PISA in Shanghai, honestly, it is a lot of effort by the student. Shanghai student put a lot of time on study than all the Asian countries student in the same age, 15 years old, year 9 student.
So I think we might actually just wrap it up in relation to Shanghai, because it gets quite a lot of attention in all sorts of ways, and you've given us a really rich answer, so that's very good. So thank you very much, Professor Mao. And so what we might do now is to open up questions from the floor, please. If you can just wave your hand in the air, because then Seshna or somebody else will be sprinting across to be able to give you. So I think this gentleman over here was the first hand. And please feel free to ask a question to Professor Mao or a member of the panel, or both.
Santa have something to say. Oh, they got a question in there, is it? Okay.
My question is of Professor Mao, please, and probably on behalf of the panel. The panel alluded to many times the experience of teachers and principals working with the experience of teachers to improve the school performance. My question of Professor Mao is, what training do teachers get that principals can work with to develop?
OK， 我刚才讲的是校长那块儿，像教师的培训也是这样的。因为
I just talk about the principal one. The teacher one is the same.
在中国呢，我们说要提高基础教育质量，我们说非常重要的两支队伍的建设，一支队伍是校长，一支队伍就是教师。
In China, because advanced and education, we got 2 training teams. One training team from principal, and other is from the teachers.
所以这个校长的培训和教师的培训原来属于教育部的2个部门，现在都整合成一个部门来负责。
Before that, this training team is under the Ministry of Education, but now they combine it.
Now, we've actually got a question from one of the live streamers, so Chantal's going to read that out for us, please.
Okay, we've got a lot of people online at the moment, some of them also from the Netherlands.
Hey.
Yeah, so that's great. We've got a Margaret online, and she's got a great question based on a conversation they were having in their staff room yesterday. What's the expected number of years you'd need to teach in a high school before you could have a chance of going for a principal or a leadership position? Their discussion around this was that most people felt it was 10 to 15 years, and some felt that these teachers weren't ready to lead at that stage. What's the panel's feeling?
So maybe we'll start with the panel's answer to that. How many years do you need in the classroom? And then we'll throw it back to Professor Mao. Okay? So anybody want to take it? How many years do you need in the classroom before you should be thinking about being a principal?
I'll start by saying I don't think there's a set number. I wouldn't like to put a set number, but I'd imagine that we should value experience but also value expertise. And it probably links to the question here, what are we offering teachers in terms of support to develop their leadership capacity? And rather than thinking about number of years, we should think about their position to be able to lead, and have they got the right skills and capabilities to put themselves in a position where they can have success, and how, probably linking to previous panel comments, how are we scaffolding that approach so it's not a sink or swim approach, it's priming them for success rather than a number of years.
It would be nice to hear from Tony, because you talked about some principals being promoted too early. Yeah.
If I can add to that, I would flip that question. It's how many years can you sustain being a principal? So be careful for what you wish for. Some people are in a hurry to get to that position. But the role of a principal, as we've heard, requires a certain level of comfort in one's own skin, a big bank of experience to draw from, well-connected network, long hours, fall in love with the classroom and fall in love with being a teacher first, and then allow that to take you to be a principal rather than being in a rush. Yes, and it's not about how many years in the classroom, but how long can you be a principal? For me, I love being in a school. The buzz and hum of being in a school is like nothing else. But how long can you be a principal? So I'd flip that question.
Thanks, Sam. Anybody else from the panel want to address that one before we throw it back?
So I just mentioned one piece of work that we're doing at Bastow at the moment, and it's called the Victorian Aspirant Principal Assessment, and it's taking the Australian Professional Standard for Principals, because I know Daniel and his colleagues don't like us calling it the AITSL standard, the Professional Standard for Principal, and unpacking that and allowing people to provide us with evidence about what their skills and capabilities are and their dispositions, and we then give them back some information about where they're sitting against the sort of scaffold up to the standard. So it gives people an opportunity to think more clearly about the principal position and whether... Can you ever be ready for the principal position, Tony? I'm not sure you can. Having been a principal myself at the age of 37, and it was hard, I'm not sure you can ever be ready for principalship, but you can be more ready. And our view is that we need to stop people from landing in landing in that role in a position where they're not ready for it, because that can do a lot of damage. So we think that by giving people much better sight of what they're able to do and their skills and capabilities, that they then know what they next need to work on to be in a better position. So,
thanks very much, Neil. So can we pass the question back to you, Professor Mao?
In China, okay. 中国呢，可能是没有明确限定是老师是要多少年才能当校长。
In China, they didn't mention how many year experience as a teacher you can turn up to be a principal.
但是要做校长，肯定必须他出身是一个好的老师。
If you want to be a principal, you must be excellent teachers.
所以一般成为一个优秀教师，他可能一般不会低于5年。
If you want to be an excellent teacher, it won't be less than 5 years.
所以不同地方可能有的老师当校长可能5年就可能当了，有的可能是10年。
In some regions, some excellent teacher after 5 years can be promoted principal, and some region will be longer.
因为中国的校长基本上是当了优秀教师以后，一般在学校里面中层干部也要做几年，因为他需要积累他的一个教育教学经验。所以校长很多出身是管教学的，就是教研室主任或者类似的副校长。
In China, is the excellent teacher should be in the middle management, and they should be every principal. They should become from this group of the middle management teachers, and then promote to the principal.
所以没有具体的规定多少年才能当校长，但是我们说当校长在一个学校待多少年，我们是有明确规定的。一般一个校长只能在学校当2届10年。
Okay, we don't have say how many years you can be to be go up to be a principal. However, a principal is only can stay the school no longer than 10 years.
但是对优秀校长呢，我们说有的校长可能这一辈子就在这个学校啊。
But however, for the excellent principal, they can stay as long as they can in one school.
All right, thank you. Now, I think there was a question over here, so perhaps this gentleman in the blue shirt.
Thank you. Professor, I was interested in something that you spoke about, which touches on something that in Australia is very topical, and it's around this notion of educational reform or pedagogical reform. And you said that the future of Chinese education will be around moving from more talents, i.e. the focus on knowledge and academic results, to a focus on good qualities, i.e. the all-rounded person, the whole person. And I was interested in your thoughts on the extent to which the Chinese community or the marketplace is ready for that in terms of school reputation, school choice, and outcomes, and student outcomes.
他的问题是， 中国因为这个刚才讲我们说那个变化，的确也是，这40年我们做非常大的一个变化，是因为中国的变化以前更多的是我们说我们以经济建设为中心的时候，那所以我们对教育有个定位。
In the past 40 years, actually, economic growing up very fast in China. So that's why in the past 40 years, it's mainly focused in economic development. So you can see that economics is developed very fast, but however, now they want to focus more in education.
所以为了回应经济的发展，所以我们对人才的培养叫做多出人才、快速人才。
So in response to economic development, what we need is we need more talented person to join in the economic development.
所以更多的是数量上来满足这个经济发展的需要。
Before that, we only focus the number of the people, the number, such like take a big number in order to fulfill this requirement.
所以我们说，大家可能对中国的政策，如果教育政策了解的话，为什么我们以前为了经济发展，我们有更多的重点班、重点校，就是要使这个人才的快速成长，适应这个经济发展的需要。
So that's why is when you go to China, you can see a lot of key school. Always a key school. The key school actually is produce a lot of talented from the key school. That is thinking about the number, thinking of fulfill the number.
所以现在我们可能就是我们现在就从经济建设为中心，只注重我们说 GDP 的发展。现在我们到整个社会的全面进步，所以我们说对教育定位从多出人才、快出人才，我们到了什么？要出好人才，就是不仅要掌握知识，同时要促进它作为人的一种全面发展。
Before that is because fulfill the economic requirement, economic growth, but now is economic growth is growing quite a long time in China now. Now what we need to change to is the whole person development. Okay, you don't need to have the number, but you want this person be a whole person development.
So is that answering your question?
I think so. I suppose it's interesting because if a country such as Australia is offering our expertise on how to achieve that transformation, it'll be interesting to see that relationship evolve if the Chinese system is going down that path. And how the Chinese community, how the parents are actually aware of it and understanding that success is not just the mark, it's more so the ability of the child to perform in the real world.
Okay, thank you. I'll take that as a comment, as Tony Jones would say. And I think that maybe in that table over there, the young lady, just in front of, Chantal,
No. Thank you. Because I graduated from China's university. When I studied in the high school in Hebei, I think we have more study pressure because the 高考. So, because our school leaders should focus on the the graduate rate. Because in our high school we should have a high graduate rate. We should go to the good university. So, for school leaders, how they balance that student to reduce student pressure and a higher education, graduate rate.
Can I just clarify, when you're talking about you're talking about Chinese schools?
Okay, no problem. Okay, I understand what his question.
I can sit down.
首先问你 ，no problem. Okay, 你看，首先我问你啊，我不知道是你刚才讲你来自河北啊，我不知道你来自
河北部分。
我就不知道是来自河北那个很牛的学校，是吧
？Maybe you come from the very bad school in 河北。
衡水中学，我不知道你是不是来的那个学校啊
？One of the school is called Hangshui Secondary School. Is the best school. Is the very outstanding in Asia, in China.
所以他刚才提了个问题，的确我们说很多校长他可能到了高中的时候看到升学率去了，是吧？
And that is I can understand is that school principal is very focused on graduation rate going to university.
所以，但是整个呢，就是说，从中国的现状里面，的确的高中这个升学率是很多校长看重的，也是我们地方教育局评价一个学校质量的很重要一个指标。
The state education department is always focused the school principal. You need to make sure how many students you go to university.
但是现在有个很大的变化，我们经常讲一句话，高考是个指挥棒，啊。
And we always have one say is 高考 is university examination. Going to university is a good indicator.
所以我们以前更多的只是看升学，就看你的考试成绩。大家可能你也清楚，整个我们现在从国家从高考那个指挥棒那个角度来讲，怎么更好的促进学生的全面发展。
We hoping is use different examination system in order we can have accept the student not only from academic achievement but all around different performance. We can calculation in this university entry.
Can I just clarify? Does that mean that China is moving towards a new type of national final summative exam system?
对，所以我们说高考现在大家也知道，我们说那个就你可以选就是几加几的选择，同时现在也可以这样讲，因为我们正在也承担教育部的国家层面的就是基础教育质量和学校发展质量，包括学生发展质量，整个的一个评价指标的重新的一个在新的时代背景重新的一个制定，因为10月份就要颁布。sorry。
Okay, that's why
10月份我们会颁布新的这个质量标准。
Okay, in the coming October, we will have a new education reform policy will come out. So this education document will not only talk about academic successful, they talk about more measurement the student can put together and go to university.
所以它目标还是促进学生全面发展。
And they want to have a whole person development rather than just academic.
Thank you. Can we go to another question from online, please, from our live streamers?
No.
Yeah, we've got another question here. As a principal, and this is for the panel, how can you ensure the quality of teachers and class delivery in alignment with the national curriculum?
There's a doozy for someone to have a go at. And you've got 2.5 minutes. How would you?
Happy to answer the first part of that question around teaching quality, and I think the big thing there, and we've seen a movement in Australia, is to deprivatise the classroom and make sure we're giving our teachers opportunities to collaborate and moderate. The variance in teaching quality is well documented as a big driver of differences in student outcomes, and it's the biggest thing we can influence once the kids come within the school gate. And I think there, John Hattie's work is paramount around making sure that we're providing opportunities for our teachers to collaborate effectively with areas of challenge, to understand student data and make sure that we're focusing on the growth of students, not just, and picking up that last point, not just on a final summative achievement, that we're making sure that as a collective, whether that's a team of teachers, a collective of schools, a cluster, a system, that we're focusing on the growth of students and making sure that we're tapping into the expertise that we have within the profession to help us, make sure that regardless of which class that student is in, that they've got access to that expertise. I won't touch on the curriculum question, but see if any of my panellists.
Thanks, Kate.
Yep. Adding to or confirming what Danielle was talking about around teacher quality. In essence, teachers are professionals and bring with them a body of knowledge, skills, understanding and dispositions, and we would aspirant around growing and learning individually and collectively. And in essence, it's the school leader's role to provide the conditions for success and to support an environment that is where teachers can continue to build their professional practice skills, but also their capacity to lead and manage around a whole range of areas that schools consider themselves to be expert at. But in essence, underpinning that is the curriculum, and the curriculum is the lever driver around delivering the experience for students and building their skills, capacity and dispositions. How do we do that? We always tie back, in our case, to the Victorian Curriculum Authority framework, and we regard our teacher professionals as having the skills to be able to do that, as well as leaders within the school who are curriculum leaders, professional learning leaders, and who are, I think Tony talked about scaffolding. In essence, we would want our teachers to move through a range of roles and opportunities that allow them to be the learner but also the leader of learning, and to provide experiences that are broad-ranging and are targeted at their young people. But Tony's got particular expertise around this, so I'm going to hand over.
Thanks, Kate. I would also add it's about the culture.
Yes.
I would say that a school that has a strong performance and development culture, that is, it values performance and it also values development. And so in that, if you think about the old, the matrix, we look at that, outstanding induction into the culture of the school, outstanding mentoring, putting them with someone who's an expert teacher, developing, providing professional learning outside the organisation, but also within the organisation, having performance reviews so that people are held to account, but supported in that accountability. And the last one is that collective efficacy, that this is a culture where we can do things. And there's nothing more powerful within a school than a group of teachers, not just teachers, the whole staff, who collectively believe that they can make a difference. And then you see a lift. And with curriculum, it's exactly the same. So it's, cross-marking, consistent delivery. It's a curriculum guarantee in every classroom, a really expert knowledge of the curriculum. And curriculum is what actually happens in the classroom or co-curricular when the learner engages with the knowledge with the teacher. So it's not what's written on paper, it's not what's said, it's actually the point where the learner engages with the knowledge. And so it's about the culture.
Thank you, Tony. We've actually, round of applause. We've actually come to the very end of our time, unfortunately, but I thought it would be appropriate if we leave the last word for Professor Mao, if you'd like to just say a few words to maybe respond to that last question, or maybe something about the topic overall you wanted to finish with.
No problem for me. Okay.
So, I wanted to thank all of the panel. I want to thank those people who asked the questions, both here live and online. And I want to thank, in particular, Professor Mao and Philip, of course, who's played a really key role here. I want to take just this small opportunity to be able to say thank you and offer a small token of our esteem and respect to Professor Mao.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have something for the panel too, but you will get that in a moment. So what I will do is just wrap things up at this stage. Of course, we haven't nailed it completely. I think that this has been a really exciting opportunity for us to be able to grapple with some of these ideas that are maybe all too familiar to us, and as soon as we engage in a kind of a conversation with something outside of our comfort zone, then we are forced to think differently about it. And for me, that's the real excitement of these international conversations about leadership, teaching, curriculum, pedagogy, anything. So I really appreciate your interest and your turning up. We may have one of these again in the future, and that would be nice if we can. But can I say now, please, on behalf of the Faculty of Education, thank you very much for coming, and goodbye. There's more food, and is there no more food? There's no food, because you all ate so much earlier on. But please stay around and please approach the members of the panel or Professor Mao to ask a question.